Please, Ray, don't do this. I'm begging you, just reconsider.
I'll lose everything.
My fiancé told his friends he'd rather die than marry me. So I moved out without a word, and what happened next will show you why silence is the most powerful weapon a woman can wield. I'm Keisha Montgomery, and this is the story of how I walked away from everything I thought I wanted, only to discover that sometimes the trash takes itself out while you're busy building an empire. Before we dive into this journey, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching from Atlanta, Chicago, London, Dubai, or anywhere in between, drop your city in the comments right now. And here's the thing, most people scroll past without subscribing, but you're smarter than that. You know a good story when you see one, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button and smash that like. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells me you're ready for more real stories about real situations. Now, let's get into it. The September heat in Houston clung to everything like a second skin. I sat in my executive office on the 42nd floor of the Pemberton Tower, staring at the investment portfolio spread across my mahogany desk. Numbers that would make most people's heads spin felt like second nature to me. At 31, I'd built Montgomery Capital Advisors from the ground up, managing assets worth over $300 million for some of the wealthiest families in Texas. My assistant, Brielle, knocked softly before entering. "Ms. Montgomery, your 4 o'clock is here. The Hendersons want to discuss their real estate portfolio expansion." "Give me 5 minutes," I said, not looking up from the financial statements I was reviewing. She hesitated at the door. Also, Terrence called again. "Third time today." I felt my jaw tighten. "Tell him I'm in meetings." Terrence Blake, my fiancé of 2 years. The man who'd proposed to me under the stars at Martha's Vineyard, promising me forever. The man whose credit cards I'd stopped paying attention to, whose late nights I'd stopped questioning, whose distance I'd attributed to wedding stress. The man who, just 48 hours ago, I'd overheard telling his boys he'd rather die than actually marry me. I hadn't meant to overhear. I'd come home early from a business conference in Dallas, excited to surprise him. We lived together in a luxury penthouse in River Oaks, the kind of place that came with a price tag that made most people uncomfortable. I'd bought it, just like I'd bought the Mercedes-Benz S-Class he drove. Just like I'd been covering his portion of the bills for the past 18 months while he worked on his business. What business exactly, I'd stopped being able to articulate. I'd used my key quietly, planning to order his favorite takeout from Brennan's. The sound of male voices and laughter drifted from the living room. His friends. I recognized Darnell's deep bass, Marcus's high-pitched cackle, and Jay's smooth tenor. "Man, you living the dream," Darnell said. "Penthouse, luxury whip, fine woman paying all the bills. You hit the jackpot." I'd frozen in the hallway, shopping bags from Neiman Marcus still in my hands. I'd bought him a new watch. $3,000. For no reason, except that I loved him. "Real talk, though," Marcus chimed in. "When's the wedding?" "Y'all been engaged for a minute now." The silence that followed lasted 3 heartbeats too long. "Yo, Terrence, you good?" Jay asked. Then I heard his voice, the voice that used to whisper sweet things in my ear, the voice that had told me I was his queen, his everything, his future. Honestly, I'd rather die than marry that woman. The bag slipped from my fingers, but the soft carpet caught them. No sound, no indication I was there. "Whoa, bro, that's harsh," Darnell said, but he was laughing. They were all laughing. Nah, hear me out," Terrence continued. "Don't get me wrong, Keisha's cool and all. She got her career popping, she's successful, independent, all that. But that's the problem. She's too independent. Too focused on her hedge funds and her investment portfolios and her corporate networking events." "So why you still with her?" Marcus asked. Another pause. Longer this time. "Because I'm not stupid," Terrence said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "You think I'm giving up this lifestyle, the penthouse, the expensive car, the credit cards with no limits, the trips to Cabo and Aspen? Man, I'm riding this wave as long as I can. But marry her? Nah, I'm just waiting for the right time to... I didn't wait to hear the rest. I'd backed out of that hallway, down the elevator, and into my vehicle so quietly it was like I'd never been there at all. For 48 hours, I'd said nothing. I'd come home that night at my regular time, smiled at him, asked about his day. I'd kissed him goodnight and woke up the next morning like everything was normal. But inside, I was a woman on a mission. Now, sitting in my office with Houston's skyline stretched out before me, I opened my laptop and pulled up a document I'd been working on since that night. A checklist. Methodical. Precise. Emotionless. Operation Clean Sweep. Item 1. Financial separation. Complete. I'd already moved my money. Every shared account we had. Closed. Every credit card with his name on it. Canceled. Every automatic payment for his expenses. Stopped. My financial advisor, Thomas, had helped me execute everything in a single business day. Terrence's access to my assets had been severed so cleanly, he wouldn't know until he tried to use that black card he loved so much. Item 2. Property in progress. The penthouse lease was in my name. Only my name. I'd verified that with my real estate attorney, Patricia. Terrence had never contributed $1 to rent, utilities, or maintenance. Legally, he was a guest, one I could ask to leave at any moment. But I had something better planned. Item 3. Personal belongings. Scheduled. I'd hired a premium moving company, not just any movers, the discreet kind that wealthy people use when they need to relocate without drama. They'd already received their instructions. Saturday morning, while Terrence would be at his weekly basketball game, they'd arrive and pack every single thing I owned. Clothes, jewelry, artwork, furniture I'd purchased, even the expensive coffee maker I'd bought last month. Everything that belonged to me would vanish in 4 hours. Item 4. New residence. Secured. I'd already signed a lease on a stunning contemporary home in Memorial. Gated community, floor-to-ceiling windows, temperature-controlled wine cellar, home theater. More space than I needed, but perfect for the life I was about to build without dead weight. My phone buzzed. A text from Terrence. "Babe, where you at? Dinner tonight? My treat." His treat. With what money? The irony almost made me laugh. I typed back, "Working late, don't wait up." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. "You've been working late a lot lately. Everything okay?" Now he was concerned. Now he wanted to check in. I wondered if his credit card had been declined yet, if he'd tried to fill up his premium vehicle and discovered the card wouldn't go through. "Everything's perfect," I typed. "Just closing some major deals. Talk later." I put my phone face down and returned to my work. The Henderson meeting went smoothly. We discussed diversifying their portfolio, moving some assets into emerging markets, reducing their exposure to volatile sectors. Numbers calmed me. Spreadsheets didn't lie. Financial statements didn't pretend to love you while planning their exit strategy. By the time I left the office, the sun had set, painting Houston in shades of amber and violet. I drove through the city in my Range Rover, thinking about all the times I'd driven home excited to see Terrence, all the times I'd picked up his favorite takeout or surprised him with expensive gifts, all the times I'd listened to him talk about his dreams while funding every aspect of his reality. What was his business again? I scrolled through my memory. Something about consulting. Or was it marketing? He'd changed his story so many times, I'd stopped keeping track. What I did know was that he hadn't brought in a substantial paycheck in over a year. I pulled into the parking garage of our building. Our building. No. My building. The penthouse was dark when I entered. Terrence wasn't home. Probably out with those same friends, laughing about how he'd rather die than marry me. Probably charging drinks to a card that would be declined before the second round. I walked through the space I'd created, looking at it with new eyes. The interior designer had cost me $40,000. The custom furniture, another $60,000. The artwork on the walls, originals, not prints, represented investment pieces I'd carefully selected. This had been our home, the place where we'd talked about our future, about babies and legacy and growing old together. but it had never really been ours, had it? It had always been mine, and he'd just been living in it. I poured myself a glass of wine, a 2015 Chateau Margaux that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Tomorrow was Friday. Saturday, the movers would come. By Sunday, I'd be settled in my new home. And Terrence? He'd wake up in an empty penthouse with canceled credit cards, no access to my money, and the slow dawning realization that the woman he'd rather die than marry had already buried him. My phone rang. Terrence. I let it go to voicemail, sipping my wine and watching the city lights twinkle below like stars that had fallen to earth. He called again, then texted, "Keisha, my card got declined. What's going on?" I smiled. It had begun. "Babe, seriously, something's wrong with the cards. Can you check with the bank?" "Keisha? Why aren't you answering?" I turned my phone to silent and finished my wine. Tomorrow, I'd go to work like normal. I'd smile at Brielle, I'd take my meetings, I'd review my portfolios. I'd be the same polished, professional, successful woman I'd always been. The only difference was that I'd be doing it all without the anchor around my neck, without the man who'd rather die than marry me. The irony was beautiful. He thought he was using me. He thought he'd found the perfect setup. Successful woman, expensive lifestyle, no commitment required. But what he didn't understand was that I'd heard every word he'd said. I knew exactly what he thought of me, what he wanted from me, and what he planned to do. And I'd simply decided to let him have exactly what he deserved. Nothing. Friday crawled by with excruciating slowness. I sat through board meetings, conference calls, and client consultations with a smile that never quite reached my eyes. Brielle noticed, of course. She'd worked for me for 3 years and knew when something was off. "You sure you're okay?" she asked during lunch, setting down a container of salad from my favorite spot on Westheimer. "I'm perfect," I said, and technically, I wasn't lying. I was about to be more perfect than I'd been in 2 years. Terrence had called 17 times. 17. Each call went to voicemail. Each text went unanswered. By Friday afternoon, they'd shifted from confused to concerned to angry. "I know you see these messages. What kind of game are you playing? We need to talk, now. Keisha, I'm getting worried. At least let me know you're safe." The last one almost made me laugh. Now he was worried about my safety. Not when he was telling his boys he'd rather die than marry me. Not when he was planning to milk me for everything I had before disappearing. Only now, when his access to my bank accounts had been severed. I worked until 7, deliberately staying late. When I finally drove home, I saw his Mercedes-Benz, my Mercedes-Benz, parked in its usual spot. The lights in the penthouse were on. He was waiting. Part of me wanted to avoid him until after the move. But another part, the part that had built a multi-million-dollar advisory firm from nothing, wanted to look him in the eye one last time. I rode the elevator up, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I walked to our door. My door. I took a breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked in. Terrence jumped up from the couch the moment I entered. His face was a mixture of relief and frustration. His designer outfit, that I'd paid for, wrinkled like he'd been pacing all day. "Finally," he said, crossing the room toward me. "Babe, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all day." "I texted you I'd be working late," I said calmly, setting my briefcase down and slipping off my heels. "That was yesterday. You didn't respond to any of my calls today." "I was in meetings." "All day? You couldn't take 2 seconds to—" He stopped, running his hand over his face. "Look, we have a serious problem. All the cards are declined, every single one. I tried to get gas today and got embarrassed at the pump. What's going on?" I walked past him to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water. The cards were in my name. I decided to consolidate my finances, simplify things. "Simplify?" His voice rose. "Keisha, you can't just cancel cards without telling me. I have expenses. I have things I need to handle." What things? I asked, taking a sip of water and meeting his eyes. He blinked. What? What expenses do you have, Terrence? What bills are you paying? What business are you running that requires my credit cards? Our credit cards, he corrected, his tone defensive. My credit cards, I said softly. My name, my credit, my responsibility when you maxed them out on bottles at clubs and sneakers you wore twice. His jaw tightened. Where is this coming from? You've never had a problem with— I've had a problem for a while, I interrupted. I just hadn't decided what to do about it yet. We stood there in the kitchen, the city lights casting long shadows through the windows. He looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't comprehend why the woman he'd been using would suddenly stop allowing herself to be used. Babe, if this is about me not contributing enough financially, we can talk about that. My business is about to take off. I've got some major deals in the pipeline. What business? I asked again. Seriously, Terrence, explain to me what business you're running. He fumbled. You know, the consulting work, the marketing projects I've been developing. Name one client. What? Name one client, one project, one contract, one invoice you've sent in the last 6 months. Silence. That's what I thought, I said. His expression shifted from defensive to angry. You know what? This is exactly your problem. You're so busy acting like some corporate boss that you can't even support your own man. Everything has to be a transaction with you, numbers and spreadsheets and— Support you? I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. Terrence, I've supported you for 2 years. I've paid for everything. This penthouse? Mine. That luxury vehicle you drive? Mine. The clothes on your back, the food in your mouth, the trips to Miami and Vegas, all mine. I didn't mind supporting you when I thought we were building something together, when I thought you loved me. I do love you, he said, and he almost sounded sincere. No, I said quietly. You love my bank account. You love my lifestyle. You love what I can provide. But me? The actual woman standing in front of you? You'd rather die than marry her. The color drained from his face. There it was. The moment he realized, I knew. Keisha, I was here, I said. Wednesday night. I came home early to surprise you. I heard everything you said to your friends. Every word. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Baby, that wasn't— I didn't mean it like that. We were just talking, just guy talk. You know how it is. You said you'd rather die than marry me. I was being dramatic. I was just venting because we'd had that argument about the wedding planning and I was frustrated. You said you were riding the wave, using me for my money until you could— What was it? Until you could find the right time to leave? That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. He tried a different approach, softening his voice, reaching for my hand. Keisha, listen to me. I love you. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. I was just being stupid, talking big in front of my boys. You know how men are. We say things we don't mean to sound cool. I pulled my hand away. Do you know what the saddest part is? I would have given you everything. I was ready to build an empire with you, to create generational wealth for our kids, to be your partner in every sense of the word. And all you had to do was love me back. Really love me, not my money, not my success, me. I do? Stop lying. My voice was steel now. I'm done, Terrence. We're done. What are you talking about? You can't just— I can, and I did. The engagement is off. He laughed, but it was hollow. Over something I said to my friends? Keisha, you're overreacting. You're being emotional. I'm being smart, I corrected. Maybe for the first time in 2 years, I'm actually being smart about you. So that's it? You're just going to throw away everything we built? I didn't throw away anything, I said. There was nothing to throw away. You can't destroy something that was never real. He changed tactics again, his voice turning cold. You realize you're making a huge mistake, right? You think you're going to find someone better? Someone who'll put up with your workaholic schedule and your obsession with money and your controlling attitude? And there it was. The real Terrence. Not the charming man who proposed at Martha's Vineyard. Not the sweet boyfriend who called me his queen. The man who'd been hiding behind my generosity, waiting for his moment. I'd rather be alone than with someone who sees me as a meal ticket, I said. You should leave. Leave? This is my home too. No, it's not. Check the lease. My name only. You're a guest, and I'm asking you to leave. I'm not going anywhere. I pulled out my phone. Then I'll call building security and have you removed. His eyes widened. You're serious? Completely. We stared at each other across the kitchen island, two people who'd shared a bed for 2 years, but had never really known each other at all. Fine, he said finally, but I need time to find a place. You can't just kick me out with nowhere to go. You have until Sunday. Sunday? That's 2 days. Then you better start packing. He grabbed his keys to my vehicle that he wouldn't be able to afford gas for much longer, and headed for the door. This isn't over, Keisha. You can't just... It's already over, I said. It's been over since Wednesday night. You just didn't know it yet. The door slammed behind him, rattling the expensive artwork on the walls. I stood in the silence that followed, waiting to feel sad, waiting to feel regret or doubt, or any of the emotions that should come with ending a 2-year relationship. But all I felt was relief. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine, my best friend since college. Girl, are you okay? I heard through the grapevine something happened. I smiled. News traveled fast in our circle. I'm better than okay. Come over tomorrow morning. I need help with something. Say less. I'll bring mimosas. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. The moving company showed up at exactly 8 a.m., professional and efficient. Jasmine arrived right after them, carrying champagne and orange juice as promised. Okay, she said, looking around at the movers already boxing up my bedroom. I knew something was up, but I didn't think you'd actually... I'm done, I said simply. Completely done. She hugged me tight. It's about damn time. I never liked him. You could have said something. Would you have listened? I thought about it. Probably not. Sometimes you have to learn lessons yourself. What did he say when you told him? She asked. Denied everything, said I was overreacting, called me controlling, the usual. Men are trash. Not all men, just the ones who pretend to love you while plotting their escape route. The movers worked with impressive speed. My clothes, my shoes, my jewelry, everything disappeared into boxes. The custom furniture I'd selected got wrapped and loaded. The artwork came off the walls, leaving behind small holes that somehow felt fitting. By noon, my entire life had been packed into a truck. Where's all his stuff? Jasmine asked, looking around at what remained. That's his stuff, I said, gesturing to the half-empty closet, the discount cologne on the bathroom counter, the video game console in the living room. Girl, he really didn't contribute anything, did he? Not a thing. We followed the movers to my new place in Memorial. The house was stunning. Modern architecture, soaring ceilings, windows that seemed to bring the outside in. It was everything the penthouse had been, but better, because it was entirely mine. No ghosts, no memories of a man who'd rather die than marry me. Just space for the life I was about to build. By evening, most of my belongings were unpacked. Jasmine and I sat on my new terrace, drinking champagne and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know he's going to lose his mind tomorrow, right? She said. I know. What if he shows up here? He doesn't have the address, and even if he finds it, this community has security gates. You thought of everything. I'm good with details. We clinked glasses, and I felt something shift inside me. Not just relief now, something bigger, something like freedom. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. Keisha, this is Darnell. Terrence is freaking out. He says you left him. He's staying at my place and losing it. Can you please call him? Work this out? I deleted the message without responding. Another text came through. Marcus this time. This is messed up what you're doing to T. The man loves you and you just bounce without warning? I blocked the number. Then J. Really? You're just going to abandon him like this? After everything? After everything. The audacity. I blocked him too. Then finally, Terrence. I went to the penthouse. Everything is gone. What did you do with my things? I smiled and typed back one final message. Your things are still there. Mine aren't. And neither am I. Lose my number. Then I blocked him, deleted his contact, and turned off my phone. Savage, Jasmine said, reading over my shoulder. Necessary, I corrected. We spent the rest of the night christening my new home, dancing in the empty living room, making plans for the future that didn't include dead weight or false promises or men who'd rather die than marry me. And somewhere across Houston, in an empty penthouse that suddenly felt too big, Terrence Blake was learning a lesson that should have been obvious from the start. You can't use people forever. Eventually, they wise up. And when they do, they don't just leave. They disappear completely, taking their resources, their energy, and their future with them, leaving behind nothing but empty space and the echo of what could have been. Monday morning came with the kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I woke up in my new bedroom, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked a private garden, and realized I'd slept better than I had in months. No tension in my shoulders, no knot in my stomach, just peace. I got ready for work with intentional care, selecting a tailored burgundy suit that cost more than Terrence's entire wardrobe. My jewelry, a platinum necklace with diamond accents, matching earrings, caught the light as I moved. I looked like what I was, a woman worth over $50 million in assets and investments, a woman who'd built herself from nothing, a woman who didn't need anyone to complete her. I arrived at my office to find Brielle waiting with coffee and a knowing smile. You look different, she said. I feel different. Good different? The best different. My calendar was packed. Client meetings, portfolio reviews, calls with investment bankers in New York and London. I dove into work with a focus I'd lost somewhere along the way with Terrence. Every decision felt sharper. Every analysis clearer. It was like removing a fog I hadn't realized was there. Around 10, Brielle buzzed my intercom. Ms. Montgomery, there's a Terrence Blake in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the request sit for a moment. Tell security he's not authorized. Have them escort him out if he refuses to leave. Yes, ma'am. 5 minutes later, my personal cell rang. Unknown number. I declined it. It rang again. Declined. Then a text from a number I didn't recognize. Keisha, it's Terrence. I'm downstairs. Please, just 5 minutes. We need to talk about this. I blocked the number and returned to my financial projections. My desk phone rang. Brielle again. I'm sorry to bother you, but he's insisting. He's making a scene in the lobby. Should I call the police? I sighed. Part of me wanted to let him make a fool of himself. But this was my place of business, my reputation, my professional space that I'd built over a decade of relentless work. I'll handle it, I said. Give me 5 minutes, then send security if I'm not back. I took the elevator down, my heels clicking across the marble lobby. Terrence stood near the reception desk, looking like he hadn't slept. His clothes were wrinkled, the same designer outfit from Friday night, now rumpled and stained. His eyes were bloodshot, his beard growing in patchy and unkempt. The man I'd once found attractive now looked desperate. Keisha, he said when he saw me, relief flooding his face. Thank God. I need to talk to you. You have 3 minutes, I said, not moving from my spot near the elevators. And keep your voice down. This is my workplace. Can we go somewhere private? Your office, or... Here is fine. He looked around at the lobby, at the security guard watching us, at the receptionist pretending not to listen. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. You can't just leave like that. We need to talk about us, about our future. There is no us, I said calmly. There is no future. I made that clear on Friday. You made a rash decision based on something stupid, I said. You're hurt, I get it. But we can work through this. I'm not hurt, I interrupted. I'm done. There's a difference. Keisha, please. His voice cracked. I love you. I made a mistake. I said something dumb to my boys. But that doesn't mean... It means everything, I said. It means you never valued me. You valued what I could provide. And now that the bank is closed, you're scrambling. That's not fair. What's not fair is you pretending to love me for 2 years while planning your exit. What's not fair is you living off my success while contributing nothing. What's not fair is you telling your friends you'd rather die than marry me. People in the lobby had stopped pretending not to listen now. The receptionist's eyes were wide. The security guard had moved closer. Terrence noticed too. His expression hardened. You know what? You're right. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yeah, I used you. Yeah, I was riding the wave. Because that's what you get when you're so desperate to prove you can have a man that you ignore all the red flags. You knew I wasn't on your level financially. You knew I wasn't contributing. But you kept paying for everything because you were scared to be alone. His words were designed to hurt. And maybe, 2 weeks ago, they would have. But standing there in my lobby, in my building, at my company, I felt nothing but pity. You're absolutely right, I said. I was scared. I did ignore the red flags. I did let you use me because I thought love meant sacrifice. But you know what I learned? Love doesn't mean letting someone drain you dry. Love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Love doesn't mean staying with someone who sees you as a resource instead of a partner. I stepped closer to him, my voice dropping to just above a whisper. And I'm not scared anymore. I'm not desperate. I'm free. Something you'll never be because you're still looking for the next woman to carry you. His face flushed red. You think you're so much better than everyone because you have money. But money can't keep you warm at night, Keisha. Money can't give you a family or make you happy or... Money, I said, cutting him off, gave me the power to walk away from someone who didn't deserve me. Money gave me options. Money gave me freedom. And money will be just fine keeping me company until I find someone who actually loves me for me, not for what I can provide. I turned to the security guard. Please escort Mr. Blake out of the building. He's no longer welcome here. You'll regret this, Terrence called as the guard moved toward him. You'll come crawling back when you realize how hard it is to find a real man who can handle a woman like you. I didn't turn around. I just walked back to the elevators, pressed the button, and rode back up to the 42nd floor. When I got back to my office, my hands were shaking, not from fear or sadness, from adrenaline, from the rush of finally standing up for myself. Brielle appeared in my doorway. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said, and I meant it. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and self-discovery. I threw myself into my company with renewed passion. I closed 3 major deals, expanded my client base, and started mentoring young women in finance through a program I'd been too busy to focus on before. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Terrence. Jasmine and I had weekly dinners. My college roommate, Taylor, flew in from New York for a long weekend. We laughed. We drank premium wine. We celebrated life without dead weight. I joined a luxury fitness club in River Oaks, started taking boxing classes that felt therapeutic. Every punch I threw at the bag was a release, a shedding of old skin, old patterns, old versions of myself that had accepted less than I deserved. My phone stayed blissfully quiet. No calls from Terrence, no messages from his friends, just silence that felt like victory. 6 weeks after I moved out, Brielle knocked on my office door with an unusual expression, something between amusement and disbelief. You're never going to believe this, she said, pulling up something on her iPad. Remember your ex? Terrence? My stomach didn't clench at his name anymore. Progress. What about him? He's all over social media. Apparently, he's been posting about his journey after leaving a toxic relationship with a controlling woman. I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, I'm the controlling woman. Oh, it gets better. He's positioned himself as some kind of relationship expert now. He's doing Instagram lives about red flags in successful women and how to know when your girl values money over love. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Actually laughed. He's even got a hashtag, Brielle continued. Healing from her. Wow, that's actually impressive in its delusion. Want to see? Absolutely not, I said, still smiling. I don't have time for fiction. But Brielle's expression shifted. There's something else. He's apparently dating someone new, and she looks really young. That gave me pause. How young? 22, according to her profile. College student. I felt a pang, not of jealousy, but of genuine concern for this young woman who had no idea what she was getting into. Should I warn her? I asked Jasmine later that night over dinner. Absolutely not, Jasmine said firmly. You cannot save everyone, Keisha. She'll figure it out on her own, just like you did. But what if... No. Your responsibility is to yourself. You already spent 2 years trying to save a grown man from his own mediocrity. Don't spend another minute worrying about his next victim. That's his karma, not your problem. She was right. I knew she was right. 3 months after the breakup, I attended a charity gala for children's literacy, something I'd always supported but had missed the previous year, because Terrence had wanted to go to Vegas instead. I wore a custom gown in emerald silk that had been designed specifically for my body, and I felt like the powerful woman I was. Keisha Montgomery? I turned to find a man I vaguely recognized from business conferences. He was tall, well-dressed, with an easy smile and eyes that actually looked at my face when he spoke. Darius Chen, he said, extending his hand. We met last year at the Goldman Sachs Summit. You gave a presentation on emerging market investments that changed how I approached my entire portfolio. We talked, really talked, about economics and global markets and investment strategies. He was intelligent, successful in his own right, and genuinely interested in my thoughts, rather than my bank account. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him. When he called 2 days later to invite me to dinner, I said yes. And when we sat across from each other at an intimate restaurant in Montrose, discussing everything from monetary policy to our favorite novels, I realized something profound. This was what it was supposed to feel like. Equal, balanced. 2 complete people choosing to spend time together, not one person carrying another. Can I ask you something? Darius said over dessert. Of course. Why is someone like you single? And please don't think that's a line. I'm genuinely curious. I considered my answer carefully. I was in a relationship that taught me I'd rather be alone than with someone who doesn't value me. So I chose myself. He nodded slowly. That takes courage. Or just good sense, I said with a smile. Both, he agreed. Both is good. That night, driving home to my beautiful house in Memorial, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine hope. Not the desperate hope of someone trying to fix a broken relationship. Not the false hope of believing someone would change. Just the quiet, steady hope of someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I heard you're dating someone new. Just want you to know I'm happy for you, even though you never gave us a real chance to work things out. I hope he treats you better than you treated me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then did something that felt like the final closing of a door. I didn't block the number. I didn't respond with anger or a clever comeback. I simply deleted the message and went on with my evening. Because Terrence Blake no longer deserved space in my head, my heart, or my phone. He was a chapter I'd closed, a lesson I'd learned, a mistake I wouldn't repeat. And as I sat in my home office that night, reviewing portfolios and planning my next investment moves, I realized something else. He'd been right about one thing. I would rather die than marry him too. The difference was, I'd chosen life instead. A life of freedom, success, self-respect, and the knowledge that I deserved more than someone who saw me as a premium vehicle they could drive until it ran out of gas. I was the vehicle, the driver, and the destination, and I was heading somewhere beautiful. 6 months later, I expanded my firm, opening a second office in Austin. My net worth crossed $75 million. Darius and I were still dating, taking things slow, building something real and solid. And Terrence? I heard through mutual acquaintances that his young girlfriend had finally figured out she was being used and left him. That he was couch surfing between friends. That his Instagram expert persona had faded when people realized he had no actual credentials. I didn't feel schadenfreude. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I felt nothing at all. And that was the biggest victory of all. Because you can't hurt someone who's moved so far beyond you that you're not even a memory anymore. You're just a lesson, a cautionary tale, a reminder of what not to accept. So here's what I learned from the man who'd rather die than marry me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so magnificent, so fulfilling, so completely yours, that the person who underestimated you becomes irrelevant. Drop a comment and let me know. Would you have handled this differently? And don't forget to subscribe, because my next story is even wilder. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.